So it feels like I should probably start off by qualifying why, after mocking influencers and DJ influencers for posting up an endless series of videos, why I've decided to post up my own video. I guess everybody has an excuse. My current thinking is that the current situation has everybody at home, and DJs and music makers have got audiences, but I'd like to believe a couple of things. First of all, I like to believe that people follow us because of our music. I'm sure people follow us because of our amazing TikToks, but to be totally honest, I have a 9-year-old daughter, so I see enough TikToks, and I don't think me adding one would be particularly useful. I don't know many of the people who are doing it. What I do think would be useful is, I think that we're in a position right now where the lines are blurred and the gatekeepers don't have any gates to keep. As such, there's never been a better time for people with talent who are at home, who have been struggling to break out and find not success necessarily, not big gigs, but an audience for their music and their DJing. This represents the moment where possibly that can happen. And people in my position, and those who are more objectively successful than me, or those, should we say, with bigger audiences, I think have probably a humanitarian obligation to try and provide people with the means to elevate themselves, to help them get their music out there, to demystify some of the obstacles that are in the way for talented people to get heard. So in my own small way, doing it the only way I can, which is talking about what's worked for me, I'd like to share my own experiences and my own ideas as towards things that will be helpful for other artists to get themselves heard. So that's it. This is why I'm doing my 10 commandments. 1. Right, so this seems like the most obvious piece of advice of all time, but you'd be surprised how difficult most people find it. There is only one you. I know that sounds like honest, sort of an obvious new age advice, but try and break it down a little bit. If you're listening and trying to copy somebody, if you admire the success of somebody and want to game the way you do things to achieve the same results, if you are taking online courses, this excluded obviously, but no, if you're taking online production courses and you're being instructed, if you're being mentored, all of the things you're doing is learning how to be like the person that you're admiring, you're watching, or you're learning from. Now, the top and bottom of it is they already exist. There is absolutely no need for another one of them. There is a need for you. It might not be the need that you want it to be. It might not result in the same, objective metrics for success. It might not make you the superstar that they are, etc. But at what cost if you do become that superstar, if you do become whatever else? You're not doing an honest expression of yourself. And if you're into it for that reasons, and if you're into things because of what it will bring back to you, then I can't help you because I don't understand that. If, however, you're in that position where you're making music because you need to, because it's compulsion, because you want to express yourself, then express yourself. Don't try and express something that somebody else has already said before you. By all means, take what people show you and build upon it, but do not become a copy of something else, because anything that it brings to you will not be yours and you won't be able to enjoy it. 2. Right, now that you've decided that you're going to be the individual version of you and that you're going to be the only you that exists, and everything that you do is now an expression of your true self, the next thing you need to do is realise and stop comparing yourself to other people. What other people do, where they end up, how they do it, everything to do it, is fucking meaningless. It means nothing. If you are expressing yourself in the way that you want to do it, then you cannot compare the journey and the route you take to anybody else's. And trust me, when you do, the only thing that it leads to is fucking madness. I've been there.
it eats you up inside. Why is this person achieving this? Why has that person got that? Why are they going there? And what you start to do then is you start to instinctively try to emulate them to get the things that they have that you want. And the thing that you have to realize um, is you have something that they want. Everybody wants something that somebody else has. Everybody wants something that they don't have. I can guarantee you that the biggest, most successful DJ playing to the biggest names and the biggest crowds with the any level of acclaim in the press and massive viewing figures, huge social media numbers, they envy the underground DJ. And the underground DJ who's playing to these parties with no names and the coolest places, they envy the success of the larger DJ. Everybody, left unchecked, feels envy for something that they feel that somebody else has that they don't have. And the secret is to identify this and remove it from your worldview. Stop looking at other people. Stop thinking about what they have and just concentrate on making yourself happy. So you've learned now that the next thing you should do is not measure yourself against other people's successes. But then the next question is, well, what does success even mean? We're given a lot of new metrics now, especially with the birth of social media. Is success having X amount of likes on a post, or X amount of followers, or love hearts on an Instagram image, or whichever way you want to go it? Or is it how many people turn up to your gigs? Or again, is it how many people buy your records, buy your music, how much you get paid per gig, how many gigs you do per year? Any of these things are all kind of set out there and have become ways of measuring what is art, essentially. I mean, if you're making music, you should be thinking about it as art in one form or another. And if you're not, again, this video is probably not for you, because you're making a product, and I don't know how to advise you other than the most base business terms regarding that. But yeah, you should be the arbiter of your own success, and what you should be looking for and what should be making you feel successful is satisfaction that you are creating music that you love. And if you do that, then you'll be successful. But it's not as easy as it sounds. I mean, unless you're the type of person who enjoys everything that they make anyway, in which case you're winning. You don't even need to be watching this video, trust me. But no, I think you'll find that creativity is a fickle mistress, and it's painful at times. So the relationship that you really want to be working on is your relationship with yourself and with your own music. Once you get to a phase where you're capable of enjoying that music and you're immune to the criticisms of others, the other hard thing that you have to realize is that you'll end up being immune to the praise of others, because other people's opinions, whether positive or negative, are imposters all of the same. It's wonderful when you find other people who do like your music eventually, because what you have found is that you found an audience of somebody like-minded that agrees and is into the same things, but you can't understand if they like the same thing as you until you've worked out what it is that you like. And if that's what you're making, then that's perfect, you've won. So yeah, success doesn't come from anything external, it comes from you. And you're successful as soon as you decide you're successful, and as soon as you decide that you're happy with the things that you're creating. Right, so I also think that it's very important to be part of something that's bigger than you. There's a lot of conversation about dance music being a community. That's where it sprung from, that's where it came from, and that's a very important thing to consider straight away. Beyond it being a community, it's possibly better if you start to think of it like an ecosystem. So what you're looking to do is to subtract from it, but before you can subtract from it, or while you're subtracting from it, what you also have to do is to contribute to it. You can't just exist as part of a vacuum. Now, my version of this growing up through the 90s and the noughties was to be part of the club scene, to be going out, to be a participant, to be a dancer, to watch other people. As I became a promoter, it became part of going to other people's parties. You could not expect people to come to your parties if you didn't go to them. It would be wrong if you did, and it also just wouldn't work.
Now, that being sort of the time I came from and where I'm from in the world geographically, that's quite a privileged position, and I realise that. But now, even if you can't be part of a local scene, even if you live on the top of a mountain, you can be part of the scene online. You can listen to other people, you can get people listening to your things, and you can share with each other and grow and draw inspiration from the other people with the same sort of mindset and interests as you. Existing in a vacuum and then expecting people to buy into your art and your work. I mean, I'm sure it does work for some people, but from my point of view, if you want the most rewarding and enriching relationship with this thing that's changed my life, it's been the most wonderful thing that I've ever been involved in. It's an interaction, and it's a back and forth, it's a conversation, and it's about sharing and receiving, but also giving.
5.
So, the next thing to discuss is process. We've talked about who you are, but sort of from a technical point of view, the processes that you use, without going direct into them and speaking about them in detail. Output is everything. I mean, the route that you take represents enjoyment for you, whether you're using it completely in a computer, whether you have to work with hardware, whether you use weeks to your modular synthesizer setup, whichever way it is, that's fantastic, and that's something really enjoyable to you. But as an artist or whatever else, it all comes down to what the end product is, what you actually create. So the route to get to that end product is all enjoyable to you, but once that end product exists, it has no bearing on what that end product is, the way that you actually got there. A track will not sound better because you made it on a particular piece of hardware or not on a particular piece of hardware or using a particular technique. A song will sound as good, or a track will sound as good as it sounds. That's it. So enjoy your process. Do whatever you can to get there, but understand that it has no reflection on the output other than what the output actually is. Output is everything. You're not going to release a track that sounds like dog shit and say, well, maybe it does sound dog shit, but I made it on this amazing Buchla synthesizer, so obviously that makes it better. By the same token, the greatest track in the world is not going to be made any worse than if it was, if you suddenly find out that it was made on Ableton native software, or that it was made on Fruity Loops, or whatever it is. In fact, I'm fairly aware that there's some really big names who make amazing music, I know, that are using the most basic software imaginable. So yeah, enjoy the route, enjoy the journey as much as you can possibly do. That's brilliant, and I encourage that as much as you can. But the thing that you really want to care about is the destination, not the journey.
Commandment 6.
So you find yourself, you've worked on yourself, you've worked on your motivations for being involved with music, you've worked on your process in the way that you connect with your music, and also the way that you connect with other people who are involved in that music. So it's now time to start turning your focus on how you present yourself to those people who you're going to use, assuming you're going to use people, to increase the reach of your music. In most cases, and I think the most reason why most people will have logged on clicked on the link to watch this video, is they're looking for insight on how to present themselves to labels. And I realise that I do run a label. I can only talk about how I present myself to labels, and also what I respond to when people present themselves to me. But the best way I can phrase it is to concentrate on being complete but not finished. I want to deal with complete acts, and I've always tried. And when I did the very, very beginning of this Manpower project, I tried to be as complete and as sort of intact as I possibly could when approaching other people. Make one amazing track and give it to a label. Yeah, great. I'll sign it and I'll release it. I'll do nothing for you, because as soon as anybody pays attention to you, as soon as anybody cares about you and wants to know more about you, you've got nothing. The only thing they can see is the label. That'll make money for you and for me, and that's it. That's the end of the line. What you need to have is you need to have a shitload of music. You need to be able to go, you think that's good? Check out this. Now check out this. Now check out this. A pipeline that's working for you of amazing stuff. You don't want to be a one-hit wonder. Further to that, I want to know who I'm dealing with. I would love, and I frequently do say bad things about social media, and I would love to tear it apart right now. But on this instance, I'm a social media phenomenon. I mean, that's where the Manpower project came from, was the fact that, I got myself up on YouTube and Facebook, and that's where all of the interest came that led to me doing gigs. So, I can't ignore that. And while I might not like the way or the movement in social media as of late, social media still represents the number one tool. Did you notice the edit? I pressed stop too soon. The number one tool to get your music and your message out there. So yeah, I mean, if you're going to be on social media, have a page, have a presence, have an idea of what you represent as an artist, and then have an idea of how you want to visually and textually represent that. Do you know what I mean? Whether it's an honest appraisal of, hi, I'm just a guy who makes music, or in the way that I did with Manpower, is highly stylized. That's appealing to a label. That's appealing to a public that, they can turn on, they can click on what you are, and they immediately go, I get this, right? I don't have to think about it. I can get it, and the music I can get because I can get what they are. I can get where they're coming from. So signify yourself. Show yourself exactly what you actually want to be and how you want to be represented, and make sure that's watertight, whether it's through Instagram profiles and what you're posting, your Facebook, your Twitter. You're creating, and while I hate the thought of artist as brand, it's kind of unavoidable now, and it's also kind of been unavoidable since time immemorial. The Beatles had a look, Al Jolson had a shtick, a brand, and a way to go through. It's not something on that level to be ashamed of. Where you take it can be quite shameful. And as a friend once said to me, Keith from Optimo, if we all represent our own channels, you have the option whether or not you want to be BBC Two or Channel 5. Of course, that only really translates if you're from the UK, but I digress. So what I always look for, and what I did myself, was somebody that had a catalogue of music that I could recognise what they were straight away, and somebody who was interested. And, somebody who came to me and didn't say, develop me, make me something, I've done this, create something. They'd say, I want to go there, can you help me get there? And that's what I mean by not being finished. Have an idea on what you want and how people can enable you and assist you and work alongside you to get there. But don't ask them to do it for you. Tell them what you want, where you want to go, and where you can work together on getting there.
Commandment 7.
So this is maybe the biggest part of advice on the entire video that I've just made. It's also the most difficult to adequately explain, because it's very much a state of mind that I'm suggesting here, more so than any direct thing. But hustling is the cornerstone, the key to getting yourself out there. There's so many wonderful, amazing talents, far more talented than me, who I know who've lacked this essential ingredient, or even worse, have been ashamed of the thought of using hustling to get themselves forward, and are languishing. They're unhappy because nobody's paying attention to the wonderful things that they're creating. But it's just something you have to accept, that you need to hustle to get yourself out there. So what do I mean by hustling? An easy way to sort of start approaching this is to really say that I think out there's a bit of a conventional wisdom that there's a step change thing where you make your music, you send it to a label, the label releases it, then you get an agent, and the agent gets you lots of gigs, and then once you've got lots of gigs, you get a manager, and the manager does even bigger things and gets you out there, and it's, these people all go and do these things for you. They don't. That just doesn't happen. An agent will not find you gigs. A manager will not find labels for you to sign to in most cases. They will bring more opportunities, and they will be able to convert them better for you. But it's your hustling, it's your work that that brings anything that comes towards you. I think it's easier to start talking in terms of case studies, and the way that I hustled and continue to hustle, work up for myself, is as follows. So the Manpower thing, when I started that, I had a lot of contacts outside of sort of, well, just had a lot of contacts with the music because I was performing as a trio called Last Waltz. We were throwing parties called Dada. We were playing at festivals and places like that. And we knew a lot of people involved in the music scene. So I had a network of connections. And with Manpower, it was like I was starting from nothing because I was working with two other people as Last Waltz. And as Manpower, I didn't want to all of a sudden use the connections that the three of us had just to benefit myself. So I started from scratch. So I did everything that I've described to you so far, and I managed to get my music signed to 2 labels just from putting things up on YouTube and Facebook, as mentioned before, and just pushing to get things out there. Once I had a couple of things signed, that's where the hustling comes in. What I did for myself was I identified the people who I wanted to play for, the people who I wanted to play with, and the people I wanted to surround myself with, and the labels that I wanted to release on. The first thing I did as soon as I had these 2 things signed for the label, and they were with good labels, they were with Hiven and with Correspondent, which is a side note and probably should be one of the commandments, is aim for the top. In fact, that's going to be the next commandment. But I'd aimed for the top with these people. The 2 labels that I wanted to do the most, and once they were locked in, I used those as the foundation to get other things. I immediately got in touch with Eskimo Records, and not only did I say like, look, I'm releasing on these labels, so you should sign me now before these come out because you're going to want to work with me later down the line. And I had the confidence to get in touch with them and say that. But not only did I say that, then I said, and as well, you only have to pay me this much for the remix. Rather than how much I'm going to cost after these 2 records come out. So I went to that record label, told them that I wanted to do a remix for them, and this is how much they should pay me because I had the confidence and the hustle behind me to do that. And go in, be ballsy. Don't ask anybody for favours. Tell them what you can do for them and what you were going to give them back for doing that. It's about bravery, I guess, but this bravery comes from all of the things that I've told you beforehand, which is having a confidence in the work that you're creating and the unique nature of what it is you do and what you are. Don't be afraid for the knockbacks as well. A lot of people are crippled and don't hustle because they're frightened of rejection. I get rejected all the time, and I have done for years. You just can't take it personally at all. It's just, it's part and parcel of what's going on. And some people won't get what you do. Fuck them. Do you know what I mean? Good for them. There's loads of people, I don't get what they do, but they're incredibly popular. And again, we're not looking for popularity. We're looking to find the people who appreciate what we do. Once you've got a pipeline of releases, so like, again, case study of me as Manpower, I had this remix coming up. I used that to find another remix. I found that for the release, and I had an idea what my schedule was going to be. Once I had this schedule, then I started messaging small parties and clubs directly. I was also messaging other friends that I had who had never worked before and just saying, look, I have this release coming out now. I have this remix coming out at this point. This magazine has shown interest in talking about it. This is happening. All of these things that have come just from your actions, they'll all bring other things like, interest from magazines or blogs or websites or channels, etc. Start using them and start packing them into a plan. So I said, I've got all of these things coming. I'd like to do some gigs around the time. So I'm going to offer to play a gig for you, and just tell me what you can pay me. I'm not bothered about making profit as long as my costs are covered. Then I'll do it, because the thing is, you have to realise where the values lie, and that's going to be a different thing, a different commandment. But at the moment, just putting yourself in a position where you're saying, I want to do this, this and this, and this is why you should do it, and getting in and contacting people and getting in their faces in a perfectly charming way. There's no need to be an asshole about any of this. And if people say no, it's fair enough. Don't be mad at me for asking. I won't be mad at you for saying no. So yeah, get out and talk to people. Come up with a plan, how to achieve it, and talk to the people that you need to work with to get to that place. Aim for the best and brightest things you can do, but also work out what's achievable, and then just get out there and hustle it.
Commandment 8.
So I blatantly hadn't thought of this one until it came up in the one I was doing last night, or yesterday afternoon, which, if anything, goes to show that this is off the top of my head and I'm making it up as I go along. But yeah, as I was reminded, always try and aim for the top of what you're doing. I mean, you have to identify what the top is first. I mean, if, for instance, Fatboy Slim was the most successful British DJ of all time. I don't want to be Fatboy Slim, so that's not my top. Nothing against Fatboy Slim or whatever, but that's not what I'm. That doesn't represent my top. But at the time when I was doing Manpower, I first conceived Manpower. I'm still doing it. At the time when I first conceived it, the top for me were two labels I was really excited about, which was Hidden Disc, run by John Talabot, and Correspondent, run by Jennifer Cardini, because both of these labels both represented the people who were at the vanguard of a sound that I was exploring, or two different sounds that I was exploring and bringing together. So they were the first people I got in touch with, and they put it out, and that is a big, big part of where I got. Now, I'm not saying when you aim for the top, you're always going to hit, and maybe you have to again go for the second top and the third top and the fourth top, but start up there, not down there and work up. Start up and work down, because the simple fact is that not everybody, a lot of people have a perception that, it's like playing on a computer game like FIFA, where you get a team that will load down and you build it up, and then you move to a bigger one and then a bigger one, and eventually you work up these rankings and you build your way up to the top and become a success. And that's bullshit. I mean, that happens for some people, but normally what happens is if you work with something that is perceived as being less vital, less important, or less legitimate, or just less successful, a second string or third string type of thing, and that's how you get perceived, and that's where you stick. It's much harder to re-establish yourself as being something more valuable than these kind of lower ideas and these things that you think are towards the bottom, than it is just to establish yourself as being fucking hot shit. Do you know what I mean? I am fucking hot shit. This is what I do. It's a case of owning it. I mean, you can only work that from your own standards, what you think is big and what you think isn't. But there is an objective sort of end of things about, the size of audience and things like that. So try and find the thing that most represents you, that represents the sort of the pinnacle of what you want to do, and tell them that that's who you want to be working with. Speak to them, see where you can go. If they don't want to work with you, just ask them fucking outright. Why not? What is it? What can I change? And when they tell you, then you decide, do you want to change that? Does that represent the direction you want to go in? So yeah, that one's quite quick, but yeah, start at the top, work down. Don't start at the bottom and work up.
9.
Value can be a really deceptive thing. The immediate one that everybody sort of is put in mind of, which is tragic, but I feel is true, is financial value. Money. How much money you're going to make, how much you're going to get paid, how much you're going to generate in sales, how much the ticket fees are going to come in, and yeah, basically how much you're going to get paid. And I really, really, really think two things. First of all, if you go out with how much money you can make in mind, you'll make some shitty decisions, like really bad. It flies in the face of everything that I said at the beginning with the first few sort of bits of advice. But beyond that, it's just not going to work for you. There's no legitimacy. People are attracted to things that actually have a truthfulness to them. When people can see through it, it becomes very attractive. And if you're chasing it for the money, that's just not really going to end up being attractive to anybody. The values that you should be looking for, the value that you should extract from things, are sort of what else it brings back to you. So there's a value in doing things that will bring you more attention, that will widen your audience. There's a value in things that will bring you better experience. There's a value in things that help build a picture of who you are by the associations that you're making. Taking, for example, the initial releases I did on Correspondent in Heaven, from an artist's point of view, from nobody having heard of me to see my name alongside the names of the other artists on that label, and the lineups that they got me onto as well, that did a very came on leaps and bounds for explaining to people, without me having to explain to them verbally, where I was situated and where I was positioned. Also, the profile and the interest that I gave in the project was sort of, it was unbeatable. So why would I have gone up and said, like, yeah, all right, here's my music, I want you to release it, but what are you going to pay me? How much money am I going to make from this? That would have stopped things from the outset. What I recognised was the value in the connection and what I've done, and those are the type of things you want to be looking for. Value in your own work, recognising the value that you have and not giving it away too cheaply, but also realising that there's more values to things than actual financial gain. And the fact is, not speaking as a millionaire obviously, but I make a living out of my music. I've never once chased, that's not true, when I have chased the money it's not worked. That's the truth of it. But I've never, I try not to look for things based on the financial return. I look at them on their artistic return, and I look at the value of the relationships that I have with the other people, and the value of the things that I'm agreeing to do, and then I hope that the finances will take care of themselves after that. And you know what? They have. They do. I mean, that's why I managed to do this as my living. The other thing that I would say with value is that what I always try to do, and this isn't so much a tip for how to get ahead, because I'm sure people often don't do this and perhaps do succeed, although I'll be inclined to think that maybe it'll catch up in the end. But anyway, what I would always kind of look to tell anybody to try and do is in any transaction, any dealing that you have with anybody, whether it's releasing a record on the label, doing a gig for them, putting something out there, just an exchange of values between you, always try and make sure that the person who you're dealing with gets as much out of it as you do. It might be a different type of value that they get out of it, but the energy that you've put into it, they put into it, and the things that you extract of it, the amount, the different values that you extract from it, they extract a similar amount of value, maybe not the identical ones, but the same level, the same amount of things. Value is something that you need to start thinking about in sort of a lot of terms, rather than thinking about things purely in the terms of financial gain. So I could have just as easily called this one, "Who the fuck do I think I am?" I mean, the top and bottom of it is that, take whatever you want from this, but you have to find your own way to do this. You have to figure out your own route towards it. What I've done is not been done in a lab. It worked for me, and it worked because of the time and the circumstances of the world at that moment. A lot of it is just, being in the right time at the right place, meeting the right people who help you on your journey. Having a bit of belief that it's going to happen will probably help you bring you there. But beyond that, this is a rough guideline. It means nothing. Try. You might get just as much success by ignoring every single fucking thing that I tell you. So please bear that in mind. I'm not saying I'm the authority. What you need to do is do this. And like I said, regarding your music and any artwork, take what I've said, build on it, or choose to reject it. Whatever you want. Just take it on board. You don't have to act on any of this. And the other thing that I really, really, really do want to get across is the world's just changed. Like, the world has completely changed. And the music industry and the clubbing scene, when we all come back from isolation, we don't know what it's going to be like. I have some predictions. I think that what's going to happen is that we're all going to have to start working together. I think that we've talked about community for such a long time on Twitter, and it sounded very cool on magazine articles and things like that. But we're actually going to have to build communities now. The money isn't going to be there anymore, and the size of the crowds aren't going to be possible for these mega festivals again. And what you're going to be looking at is you're going to be looking at small gigs done by people with passion. That's a brilliant time for anybody new to come into it. It's like it was when I started. It's more exciting, and it's not as sewn up, and there's going to be more opportunities for more people to do more interesting things, as long as they decide to work with other people, and as long as I say, you share the value with others and you try and keep up this ecosystem that I've spoken about. Or I could be completely wrong. Who knows? Ignore me. Choose to do what I say. It really doesn't fucking matter, because at the end of the day, it's just dance music and discos. Okay, thank you for listening to my bullshit. I hope it's been helpful to some people. I hope it's been the sacrifice has been noted, that I hate the way I look without a beard, and I've still put my face up publicly for people. So you're fucking welcome for that. Anyway, if anybody wants to talk about this, talk about it in the comments rather than private messages, because there'll be other people out there with the same questions who are a lot more shy than you who'd love to read the answers. Okay, thanks.